As we said in the previous lecture, everyone these days is trying to tell us we should be mindful. But why? What are the benefits of mindfulness? Do we need to be mindful all the time? Are there times when being mindless makes sense? In studying mindfulness, I found many references on breathing, meditation, yoga, etc. And so are you, I'm sure. So we will certainly cover these great benefits, but the issue I see here is that very few folks tell us how to make it a practice. When we try mindful breathing, and we will go through this exercise, we will feel good about ourselves, about the exercises. But how do we make a practice out of it? How do we make it a habit? After all, being mindful is not a one-time deal. It should spread throughout our entire life, right? As habits and mindfulness expert, I will teach you how to combine these two and make the best out of the both world, mindfulness and mindlessness. After studying and teaching mindfulness for quite a long time, I realized that something that I don't see much in the literature, and that is that being mindful, being in the present moment, or simply being instead of simply doing, can have multiple benefits. Such as less injuries, yes, better relationships, success at work, certainly more spirituality, etc. You see, many of us, especially in the Western culture, grew up with more doing is better. We were told that multitasking is what we all should be doing, and yet the research clearly shows that multitasking is not good for us, not good for our brain, and it even makes us less productive. Focusing on task at hand makes us productive. So for those who believe that if we make our employees work so hard and multitask, they will be more productive, not true. This reminds me of a commercial I heard many years ago. I forgot what the commercial was all about, but it was a radio commercial, and it went something like this. If you don't brush your teeth, read the newspaper, watch TV, talk to your partner at the same time, you are not New Yorker. And not only that I lived in New York back then, but based on this commercial, I was a true New Yorker. And back then, so proud of it. Now, don't take me wrong, I am still proud of it. Just not proud that I was associating myself with that commercial, and that was the reason I was proud to be a New Yorker. I was a true multitasker, a great multitasker, I believed. But I regret it now. That part that was a New Yorker, not that part rather that was a New Yorker, but a part that I had to multitask in order to prove I was a true New Yorker. When we focus, when we are in the flow, as Dr. Mihail Csikszentmihalyi calls it, we are not only productive, but we are also happier. While being in the flow, your existence is temporarily suspended. You don't exist. It is just that moment that exists. So, what is flow? You will find this in my other lectures in positive psychology, but just briefly, flow is a state of being fully engaged. And as my friend, Harvard professor Dr. Tal Ben-Shahar defines it, it is a meditation in action. I just love this definition, and it's just so great to talk about it here, because we are talking about mindfulness and meditation. It is easy to understand meditation in action. It is similar to meditation, as in meditation you focus on your breath, on your body, etc. And in flow you focus on music, game, writing, and other things. But time and time, more than we really know or want to, we are not in the flow. We are not mindful. We are mindless. So what could be a possible outcome of mindlessness? Let me give you an example. One time I was in such a hurry, really for no particular reason, so I ran down the stairs in my basement, fell down, ended up in the hospital, and was unable to walk for a few weeks. To make the story even worse, at that time, there was a time that I just got a new job. And the only reason this happened is because I was not mindful. I was not present in the moment. I was totally mindless. Do you ever forget where you left your keys? I might have asked you this in first lecture. And not sure where you locked your car, so you go back to double check. Think you didn't turn car or house alarm just to find out that you actually did. Send an email just to regret it later on. Maybe was angry just to realize later that you were wrong and must apologize for your action. Maybe went to the grocery to buy one thing and end up buying many other things, but not the one you actually went to grocery for. It happens to me all the time. It happened more before than now that I practice and teach mindfulness. But maybe it's just me, but these things, like I said, do happen in my life. Now, I'm not proposing let's practice mindfulness and it will save all of our problems. In fact, mindlessness, when practiced appropriately, such as habit you create to exercise every day, is certainly good for you. But mindfulness can bring us many benefits. We will talk about these benefits more throughout the program. But like everything else, we got to practice mindfulness. Let me share the old story in New York. So the tourist, and I live in New York, well, I live now in New Jersey, but I'm in New York almost every day. So I can really associate with this story, and I hope some of you can as well. But so basically, the tourist sees a guy with a violin in his hands. And the tourist frantically just like runs to this guy and says, "How do I get to the Carnegie Hall?" For some of you that may not know, you can just Google and see what Carnegie Hall is, really the famous place for the musicians in New York City. So the musician stopped for a moment, looked at the guy carefully, and said, "Practice, my friend, practice." So, just like anything else in life, in order to get better in mindfulness, we need to practice. Practicing mindfulness is easily said than done. It is very difficult today to slow down. I totally understand that. But to practice, that's the only way to do. As we said earlier, a lot of research shows that multitasking is not good for us. Neither it is good for productivity, although our bosses most of the time tell us we need to multitask. In one of my workshops, when I mentioned this, I had to explain that do not say to your boss, Bratzo said, "I cannot multitask anymore." But if you focus on one thing, not only that you will be even more successful, but it will also help you become even more mindful. There are many formal mindfulness meditation practices, and you may decide to study one and or go to a week or so long retreat to do an extensive mindfulness and meditation. However, for most of us, that is not practical. So in this program, we will mostly focus on informal meditation and tools you can use as soon as you finish the lecture. The telephone meditation. I bet that you, just like me and many other folks, have a phone. If not cell phone, then home phone. And get a lot of calls one way or another. Can we use the phone to practice mindfulness? Never thought about it, right? Actually, yes. We can use any object to practice mindfulness. This is something that is, I believe, not explained clearly in some of the lectures and meditation and mindfulness. But this particular informal meditation comes from a famous Vietnamese teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. It is called the telephone meditation. Next time your phone rings, take a moment and actually listen to the sound of the ring. Just focus on the sound. Do not rush to pick it up. In fact, since most of the phones today have a caller ID, once you hear the sound, focus on the phone number or the name that comes up on the phone. Interestingly enough, I can almost guarantee that you will notice different emotions when you see different numbers or caller ID or people that are calling you. You might be happy, sad, mad, upset, angry. You may feel nothing if you do not know who's calling, but you may be curious or not. Anyway, give yourself time. Become mindful of the phone call and even become mindful of the person calling you. We can practice this anytime we hear the phone ring.